Hey there, and welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything we talk about is building enduring great companies. My name is Brad Giles, and today, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. Hello, Kevin. How are things?
Things are great. Coming into winter, life's good.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah.
We've got an interesting topic today. We're talking about how to identify A players during an interview. Something that's pretty timely at the moment. Everyone seems to be
got some great stories of what happens when you don't.
I have. We like to start with a word or phrase of the day. Kev, what might you have today?
Competition.
Oh.
I just over the weekend, and I've shared before about my passion for racing, and got finally back into full-blown competition. I had 2 races on the weekend. First time I've done some other stuff, but hardcore like this, first time in a long time. And I got to get back to, there's one thing driving a race car and learning how to drive it and mastering on a racetrack. And it's another thing to compete on a big road. We do road courses like you would see for F1 at this track, and just the thrill of the battle. It's the feeling kind of like must have been like for cavemen and cave women out there hunting, trying to get dinner. Just the amount of adrenaline pumping through your system. And we have an amazing group of guys, in this race group that we're part of. And there's like 16 or 17 of us in the weekend. Anyway, it's just amazing. And I forgot how much I loved it. And so competition and that thrill of the challenge and the chase and the high stakes and the great people. Anyway, so that's mine, competition.
Yeah, mine is about the opposite to that. Mine is a word which is onboarded. Last week I got the first physical copy of my new book, Onboarded, which for those
congratulations.
Thank you. For those on YouTube, you can see just there. And that's due out on the 1st of November. That's the release date. Onboarded, how to bring new hires to the point where they are effective faster. So that, having got that first physical copy, it's a great milestone. Couldn't go past that as a word of the day. So let's see you stitch those together, Kev.
Not a chance. I'm not even going to touch it. But what I will say is, for those who have read early work that Brad did on his own board book, he put a lot of thought into mastering that part of the hiring a person, and where it often fails in companies. So I know there is a lot of great insights in it, and it's damn important. If you don't onboard people properly, a lot of stuff gets missed, decreases their chances of success. I was telling my team about it tonight, Brad, in our team meeting. I showed them the book and told them all about it and told them to be a great resource for all of our clients. So
sweet. So we're hoping to do a little bit of work on that in the lead up to that book launch, maybe a few subjects to talk about. But today we're talking about, what we got? We got a question from a listener, which we loved. Didn't we love that? We loved it.
Question, yeah.
Yeah. So it's from David from Virginia in the USA, from a company called Meridian Bird Removal. Had a look at their website. What an awesome business. What an awesome business.
I didn't have a chance to look. I should have. Yeah.
I looked for you. It's okay. I'm sure Dave will forgive us. So yeah, a great business, Meridian Bird Removal. They're all across the US, and they if you need to get rid of birds, they're the people to talk to. So this is Dave's question. For context, I'm wondering about spotting talent as a training opportunity for hiring managers. A players are not terribly common. How to attract young professionals who have this profile. Also, how to help hiring managers pierce the veil of the 60 to 90-minute interview to see who possesses the character, drive, and potential to be truly exceptional and who doesn't. Historically, we've not emphasized this nearly enough. We don't necessarily understand it well enough to be able to emphasize it. We've relied on traditional HR processes, which are pretty good for core values and core cultural alignment, but fall short of helping us accurately identify true A players. Thank you for your consideration on this topic. So thank you, Dave. If anyone else has questions, we love questions. It gives us some great topics to discuss. So please send those through. So Kev, how to identify
Yeah,
A players during an interview. This is how we've interpreted that question.
for sure. And we know it's hard to find them. And the reality is there's tools. Where people go wrong is, first of all, let's define A players. In our world, that we as an A player is someone who would score an A, just like in the old report card system in school, an A on culture fit, being consistent and harmonious in the culture of your company, living your core values and aligned to your purpose, and an A on performance. In Canada, an A starts at 85%. I think in the US it's 90. So it's very good on culture fit and very good on performance. That's the person we're looking for. And most companies have 25 to 30% of these awesome humans that kind of make up the top 10% of people available, whatever it is you're going to pay for that job. We push to get companies a lot higher because the better your team, the better it works. So that's kind of setting the table for it. But finding these people, it's tough. We use tools there's all kinds of tools out there and voodoo hiring techniques and all kinds of fun stuff. What we generally look for is, one, knowing what A performance is, and B, let's see if the person matches what we need. But it's being just super thorough when most people are in a super hurry when they're trying to hire. And that's the hard part. He asked here about the 60 to 90 minutes. And as you and I know, 60 to 90 minutes is a good start for an interview, but it's not going to get you there. So a lot of it requires, changing your perspective and truly investing a bit more energy up front, so you have less headache on the back.
Yeah. There's no substitute for a team of A players. Okay.
No.
Yesterday I did a quarterly planning workshop with a team. They've bona fide got 90% A players and have had it for 3 or 4 years. And it's just a fantastic environment producing great momentum. So there's no substitute for that, right? The higher the percentage of A players for longer, the greater the chance of the team's success. So how do you know if you've got an A player or an A potential on your hands? It really comes back to what you said, which is you've got to know what does success look like in the role. And oftentimes we kind of know we're hiring for somebody. We know what the title is, but do we really actually understand what success means in that role?
Yeah. So I was talking at the racetrack on the weekend, talking to a guy who was an X Games athlete and started his own construction company. We got talking about business and he's getting going. And I just kind of explained it to him pretty straightforward, is that, if you're going to go and build a winning hockey team, well, you can kind of go and grab people at the local rec center and grab who you can get, and you'll have some fun and play. But if you want to win, like we call in Canada, the Stanley Cup, which is the top award for the top teams in the National Hockey League, you're going to need different strategies and different approaches. And it's not rocket science. And I was just sharing with him, and he's kind of, a young entrepreneur, and his partner is somebody that I know from the racetrack as well. We're talking. It's not rocket science. It's just staying focused on that this is a talent game, and you got to approach it with a talent mindset. And I said for him, it's like for him and his background as an athlete, it's the same thing. When you're looking for top athletes, we naturally have this kind of mindset, and we put the energy and the time into it. Seems to be when we're hiring human beings into business, we don't give that same level of scrutiny, but we naturally would do it if we owned an NHL hockey team. We would naturally do it if we're building a team of, freestyle motocrossers. And but we often fail to think that way. And as a result, we end up with a lot of headaches and also hurt people by putting them in jobs they could never, ever be successful in.
Yeah. And that's
the part that drives me nuts. That's the part that I'm just like, we take these awesome, loyal people and we destroy them and stress them out by putting them in roles that they're not suited for, at least at this point in time, and sometimes maybe never.
Yeah. The challenge here is that A players are hard to find, okay? Managers often aren't also skilled in recruiting in how to find the right people.
Yes.
So they might have done a bit of it, but we say, go and do an interview because I'm too busy, manager. Go and do an interview and see how you go. And then we just say, if you're owning the role, then you need to interview people yourself. But they might not really know what that is, and they might not know what success looks like in the role.
Yes, and that's the key piece. So, example, one of the recently a hire I felt just horrific about. And this is a really good person, but we hired a head of marketing for a company that I work with. And this person was skilled, had amazing experiences, all this stuff. Unfortunately, in marketing, there's two very distinct branches of marketing.
Yeah.
There's brand, which is the big picture look and feel of how everyone feels about a company. And then there's lead generation. They're dramatically different. One's kind of like, if it was cars, like one's like a luxury car, and the other is kind of like a truck for hauling gravel. They're very, very different. And if you're going to buy a luxury car, a gravel truck isn't going to do. So they hired a brand person in a company that does a tiny bit of brand and almost all lead generation, like direct response marketing. And like, the person tried, but they couldn't have won. It's not fair to the person. Obviously, it's hard for the company, but because they weren't clear enough on what the job was. They were just hiring a director of marketing.
Yeah.
But they hired the wrong kind. So of course the person couldn't succeed. It wasn't good for them, wasn't good for the company. And it's just like, so the upfront, and I call it the engineer's spec for the job. Like, if we're going to build a bridge, we're going to get we could draw a little drawing, or we can get the engineers to do the proper drawings of the proper materials and the proper everything. And then when someone goes to build it, they'll build the right kind of bridge. But if you don't have proper engineer drawings and you just send some people to go build a bridge, you're asking for trouble. So the engineer's drawing up front is like quadruply important, and it's where a lot of hiring processes fall apart.
Yeah. See, what we can have is what I call candidate lust. And that is, and this is in a completely professional way. Let me just flag that up front, right?
Might be a different word we can use for that, Brad. Yeah.
Well, but it's a great analogy, okay? Because the manager goes into the interview and they're like, they look at what the person is doing, the capabilities of that individual. They get to the point of the interview and they're like, we've just got to get this person. Let's just get him. My life is going to be so much easier. And that speaks to a bigger problem because A, they're going to simply try to get that person on board and not follow a process. But B, what they're doing is they're looking at hiring as the be all and end all. They're looking at hiring as a deal. Imagine that you walked into a car lot and you're looking at a car and you're like, oh, I love this Lexus. This Lexus, you're getting like car lust, right? I love this Lexus. I really want to get it. And what does the salesperson say when you walk up and you're enamored with the car? He says to himself, herself, this is the best situation that I could hope for. Take it for a drive. We're going to sell it to you at the full sticker price. But instead of that, what we want to do when it comes to hiring is we want to think about it as hiring. It's not the deal is done. When we sign the employment contract, that is only the beginning of us validating whether or not we have an A player. There are three major steps that we've got to think about. The first is the role scorecard. Okay, so this is how do we define success in the role? So for David, who sent us in this question, first of all, do the managers really, really clearly understand what success looks like in this role, to the point where it's not possible for them to misunderstand? When they're looking at candidates, they know exactly what it is. So first of all is that. Then is the whole hiring process from go to woe, advertisement to signing the contract. And then after that, we've got an onboarding process, which typically might be about 90 days. And at the end of that onboarding process, we take someone who is a potential fit from the hiring process, and we're able to define, is this person a successful or not a successful fit?
Yeah, they actually the A player we think we hired.
We validate.
And each of those steps is critical. So as you said, Brad, there's the definition that engineers spec for the job. That for our clients that we do this, we just had one of our clients doing it for a president role. We work with the top grading group, and Chris Mersaw, that we do a lot of work with. He helped to define this role for one of our clients. And so we identified the president role. I worked with my client as well just to double check some of the stuff. It's a 4 or 5 page thorough document with a lot of data and measurable things that are required for someone to be successful in that role. Interesting, what the CEO said, hey, now that I got this done, I've met 3 people. I liked them all. And then I went back and read the scorecard. I think I'm down to 1. Because the role was so clearly specified, he could compare his initial conversations with the person against that scorecard and have a very good opinion, or at least a filter of the ones who weren't a fit. There's still a deeper process to go through for the ones that could be. So that definition is critical. People slip on that. Then obviously the assessment, and that's the thorough interviewing portion, doing some assessments, doing some testing of skills for certain jobs. Like if they're going to be a writer, set them down, let them do some writing. If they're going to be accountant, set them down and let them fix an income statement. Like there's, and then for sure, speaking to references. We had one horrible hire who was a very nice person, but they just made a mess. Finally, we're in the meeting, and I asked the CEO, I said, well, did somebody check their references? He's like, he calls HR. Nope. He steps out. The CEO steps out, goes and starts making calls to confirm the references. He got a hold of, I think he called, the executive wasn't available. He called, asked for the CEO, spoke to the CEO, asked a few questions, said, thank you very much. Walks back in the room and says, the person's leaving tomorrow and there's how the hell they came into our company, I don't know. I spoke to the CEO of the company they came from. They said that they explained all the issues they had, and it's the identical issues we're having. But that's a tight process of evaluating. So it's like if you're buying a used car, get a darn inspection to make sure it's not going to fall apart when you drive off the lot. And if and that's discipline. And people just often don't have that rigor. And then you get to the point of, if you do that right, now you have the opportunity to onboard well. And unfortunately, sometimes people do all of that right, they onboard poorly, and then it falls apart too.
Yeah. I think it depends on the role. So for our listener, David, he might be hiring for someone who isn't an executive, and that's fine. So
yep.
A full-on top grading process may not be appropriate in that scenario, but he's going to have a rigorous hiring process. Number one, again, that does check references 100%. It starts with a job scorecard. The point that you made earlier, Kev, was that during the hiring process, you refer back to the job scorecard to know whether or not we've got the right person. Well, that's why the job scorecard comes at the beginning, not afterwards, so that we can avoid that candidate lust, so that we're not adapting it to suit the people that we're looking at. Then we go, this is what success looks like. Then we've got to have a rigorous hiring, and then we've got to have a rigorous vetting and an onboarding process to make sure that 90 days after we've signed a contract, we know exactly whether or not this person is a successful fit in the organization, or they should exit.
Exactly. And that's the thing. At the 90-day point, and especially, again, we're kind of getting past the hiring piece, but basically, if you have a less than perfect hiring process, if you get 90% A players coming in and you onboard them well, you're going to have at least 90% at the end of that 90 days. If your hiring process is weak, well, then you're going to, at the end of the 90 days, have a little bit more decisions to make about the people who aren't making it. And that's, it's critical. But the key is to be able to make that decision at 90 days. So they're not getting too embedded in your company, building relationships with people and getting entrenched if they're not going to be staying long term. Like the sooner, and so it's better for them and it's better for you as well.
I think that's the point, is that how do we know if we're looking at an A player after a 1 hour interview? We never will.
You won't.
It's not possible.
You can tell ones that aren't. You can tell those, you can filter out ones who aren't, a whole bunch of them. If you screen well, generally very quickly, but to know from the ones that look good and seem like they're close to truly prove it out, you need more than an hour. In some cases, more than a month. You need multiple things to help you get there, and that's why it's called rigor.
Yeah. So we want to be sure. Let's just analyze what we're saying. Will we know this person is going to be in the top 10% of available candidates at the pay rate that we offer after 1 hour? There's just no way, right? So we take the best that we use a good filtering process and reference checking and a good job scorecard, and then we sign the contract knowing that within 90 days, asterisk, get your own legal advice, within 90 days, they'll be in a probation period where if they're not a good fit, a successful fit, you can exit them. And then we rely on that 90-day process to get them.
But I want to be clear. Ideally, we enter the hiring with 90% success rate on picking A players to hire. That's the key, right? And when you're hiring people fresh out of college, and one of my companies down in the US, they hire a lot of college grads. They can't, with college grads, it's hard because some of them are even figuring out who they are. But the key is the filter is before the job offer. The insurance or the double checking comes with the onboarding. I want to make sure we're saying the same thing and not confusing people, Brad.
Yeah. We definitely are. We've got to have a good hiring process. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And you want to maximize the disruption by not bringing in people who aren't going to be A players in that role to do the best job. And one more example I'll share. A very common one that I have seen, and normally it's people who have in disc profiles, what I call a high I, or very influencing personalities. I know my I is quite high. I don't remember how high yours is, Brad, but I'm the type of person, I can make a very good first impression if I choose to. And the number of people that get mishired that are very charming is incredible. I remember once I had a CEO, he had a very successful guy. This is going back like 15, 20 years ago. And loved the guy. His name was Bud. I won't say anymore. Bud was a great guy. Really, really enjoyed him. And he's Kevin. I just met this woman to replace his EA, his executive assistant. Oh, she was amazing. I hired her on the spot. Oh. And I'm like, Bud, please tell me you didn't give her the offer. Yeah, I did. She was so good. I'm like, I've been involved in a lot of hiring of administrative assistants and profiled a lot of them over the years. And the number one thing is the best ones often don't make the best first impression because they're grinders and they're protecting your schedule and organizing things. And the ones who make amazing first impressions, high percent, many of them flamed out. So it didn't mean that the person was bad. It just means if you feel compelled to hire them on the spot, they were incredibly charming. And once we get charmed, we forget to validate for skills and ability and all those other things. And it turns out this one lasted like 3 weeks. Yeah. But because they were all charmed, they didn't have capability. It's not that you can't be charming and capable, but the administrative assistant role requires a lot of rigor, discipline, precision. And charm, in his particular case, charm made him feel good, but he needed a lot of disciplined, rigorous work done. So again, there's all kinds, it's hard, but if you're clear up front on what you're looking for, you're thorough in the process, and you look for the patterns. You look for the patterns. I mean, our show next week is about level 5 leadership and becoming and finding level 5 leaders. And there's a couple of great questions you can ask actually about to help identify if people are true level 5 leaders, even from what you can dig into. And we watch for that stuff, right? We watch for the people that are going to come in and just either not do well in the job because they don't fit, or not do well in the culture because they're going to be disruptive.
Okay, so maybe let's move on to some key points here. Okay, so what we're saying, if we go back to the original question, how do we identify A players during an interview? Well, overall, to bring people on, you've got to have a rigorous process, right? We're suggesting a 3-step process with a great role scorecard, a great hiring process, and an effective onboarding process. So we start with the role scorecard to understand what success is, or an A player actually looks like. This is before you've met any candidates or placed a job advert. And during recruitment, interviewers, during recruitment, see what happens, Kev, when you edit, when we're talking.
Well, I just had an idea. I wrote something down. Did I mess you up?
Yeah, you did. Let's start again.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're sharing a document here. Kev edited it. All right, let me start again. Start with role scorecard. Understand what success looks like and an A player actually looks like. Then during recruitment, interviewers have something to compare against. Before we place a job advert, we want to have clear understanding of success. Mm-hmm. And as Kev calls it, an engineer's spec for the role. Assessment. So the hiring process ensures that the person is a great fit for the role. Okay. But that's not the end. That's what we get then is we believe this person is a potential fit. There's a 90% chance of success is what that's saying. And that's theory. Sometimes theory doesn't work in real life, but that's what we're kind of advocating here. Leaders' problem is that they expect perfection from the hiring deal. It's like the deal is done, let's move on. If this person is a good fit, they'll work out, right? But good fit is actually the problem here. We're not looking for good fit. We're looking for a successful fit. So when we're making the decision, we've got to make sure that we've checked references, we've got the right compensation, that we've clarified the expectations of the role, the person understands that. And then after we've signed the employment contract, we transition to onboarding. And then if we believe we've got a potential A player, onboarding should validate that, okay? And after 90 days working in the business, we should be really confident this person is going to be a star here. It tells us if the person out of the hiring process who is a potential fit becomes a successful fit. And now the work begins. So we've now got to begin to work through with the individual. What are the understandings that person needs to have to become a successful fit? The cultural understandings, the manager's understandings, and the technical and process understandings. And then by the time 90 days occurs, the end of the onboarding, we force that decision. Is this person a successful fit or an unsuccessful fit? And then that is the manager's job, not HR's job. So we've got a few episodes to look through here. Episode 100, top grading, hire with 90% success. Episode 89, the 4 different types of A players. Episode 88, the hidden cost of not having a team of all A players. And number 53, what is a top grading scorecard and how do you use it? Kev.
So that's it. That's the show. This is not rocket science. As we said, it's discipline. And, one of my favorite quotes from Jim Collins is, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely conscious choice and discipline. And that's all that is deciding you're going to have a great team. So that's top grading. That's the Growth Whisperers for this week. Thanks for joining us. If you want more episodes, you can go and look for the Growth Whisperers and subscribe. And please rate us and give us a great rating if you think it's valuable. If you've got questions like today, please send those in. For the YouTube video, go to youtube.com and search for the Growth Whisperers. Brad's got a great newsletter and great resources on his site, and you can get a hold of him at evolutionpartners.com.au. And for myself at Lawrence & Co., our firm we have a great newsletter and also resources, lawrenceandco.com. Hope you have an awesome week and good luck finding the talent that you want.